Football League kicks off the 1966 season, spotlighting its newest team, the Miami Dolphins.
The Dolphins' debut must go down in football history as the most thrilling first play ever made by any new team anywhere. Joe Howard takes the opening kickoff and races 95 yards for a touchdown.
Shula came in 1970. We changed coaches, but the team was transformed.
No-name defense became sort of symbolic of a defense that, with not a lot of known players, became a terrific defense to be on.
Going undefeated just sort of happened.
You know, winning all the games. Nobody had done it before that. Nobody's done it since then.
Touchdown, Larry Zonka! And the Dolphins have now established clear superiority in this game.
It's intercepted at the line of scrimmage.
Marino, it doesn't take long for the thought to go from the mind to the arm to let go of the football.
Going deep up the sideline, man down, touchdown!
Dan Marino has broken another record.
Coaching is taking the personnel that you have and getting the most out of their ability.
Coach Shula becomes the all-time winningest coach in the history of the National Football League.
Discipline! Discipline!
I can bring my daughter out here and go through this drill.
Buckle them chin straps, prima donnas!
Defense rises to the occasion.
He will force a tackle to do something the tackle doesn't want to do.
Ball is stripped from the backside.
Flutie back now looking.
He's hit the ball! Zach Thomas delivered a Christmas present.
We're division champs! Hit that home, Rick!
A jaw-dropping run by Ricky Williams.
Well, can't stop playbook now.
Back snap to Ronnie Brown. Goes to the right. He's got it! And the Miami Dolphins are the champions of the AFC East.
Miami of the early 1960s was America's vacation paradise, boasting a variety of leisure activities. The one attraction the city did not have was a big league sports franchise. An ambitious attorney from South Dakota decided to do something about it.
Joe Robbie was the poorest owner in the history of North American Major League sports. But I had tremendous respect for him because nobody ever gave Joe Robbie anything. He grew up dirt poor in the plains of the Dakotas, worked his way through law school, and I guess started the Miami Dolphins with something like $10,000 of his own money.
I've been enormously impressed the entire time I've been in Miami with the enthusiasm of the football fan.
And he was able to do what men far wealthier than him were unable to do, and that was bring Major League sports to the state of Florida.
In 1966, the American Football League announced the entry of its newest club, the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins moved quickly to find office space, while Robbie looked anywhere he could to secure additional business partners.
I worked at WIOD in Miami. I did a nightly radio show from Surfside 6, the houseboat that was a very famous television show. And they let us use that boat for our radio show. So we were docked opposite the Fontainebleau on the inland waterway. Many great guests who would come, stay at the Fontainebleau and come across the street. Then along come Danny Thomas and this group, and they bring the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins come to town.
Amid all the bright lights and pretty girls that are synonymous with Miami, Florida, the American Football League kicks off the 1966 season, spotlighting its newest team, the Miami Dolphins.
Danny had maybe 1% of the team. Joe Robbie put the whole package together. Joe was a genius of sorts.
Robbie's work was just beginning. The franchise faced a virtual 2-minute drill, publicizing the team, selling tickets, signing players, and establishing practice facilities.
They were new getting together, the coaches were new, and they were trying to put a team together. And really, I guess it seemed like they put it together so fast, they didn't really plan where they were going to work out, or what the schedule was going to be, or what kind of food they were going to have. It was just like, it seemed to me like it was all put together in 1 month.
We practiced on a field that was at one of the local junior highs or high school there, which was, it had seashells on the field, and it wasn't even a football field. They just marked it off as like a part of a beach area almost.
The playing surface at the Orange Bowl was a much faster track, as the Dolphins and their celebrity co-owner discovered the night of the first game in franchise history.
Enjoying every moment of opening night is comedian Danny Thomas, co-owner along with Joseph Robbie. Looks like Danny knows his football.
Dolphins' debut must go down in football history as the most thrilling first play ever made by any new team anywhere. Joe Auer from nearby Coral Gables High School and a Georgia Tech alumnus takes the opening kickoff and races 95 yards for a touchdown.
Joe Auer took the opening kickoff, and Danny Thomas ran down the sidelines with him. As he ran, Danny ran.
Many years later, Johnny Carson asked him for his most memorable moment, and he said, well, the most memorable moment in his career was when Joe Auer ran the opening kickoff of the Miami Dolphin franchise back for a touchdown. And God, I sat up in bed and went, did I just hear my name on the Johnny Carson show?
Danny Thomas wasn't the only Dolphin with show business savvy. Number 54, Wahoo McDaniel, was the only player in the league to sport his first name on the back of his jersey. This helped promote Wahoo's other occupation as a professional wrestler. The full-blooded Native American sported traditional headdress while moonlighting in the ring, sometimes sandwiched between football practice.
So I was wrestling there at the same time, which worked out good for me. I lived in Tampa in the off-season, and I wrestled all over Florida. One year at a training camp, I went and wrestled Gene Kaniski for the World's Championship 5 days after we were in camp. I scrimmaged that morning, went and laid down for a while, scrimmaged that afternoon, drove to Miami, wrestled an hour draw, and drove back and got up the next morning and ran and scrimmaged another hour.
Wahoo's additional earnings came in handy. The Dolphins struggled on the field and at the box office, putting Miami's cash-strapped ownership in a deep financial hole.
I was sent to pick up the projector at the repair place, and I had to pay for it with my own money because they wouldn't let me. The Dolphins didn't have good enough credit. They wouldn't bill the Dolphins, and I had to pay for it with my own money. And one time, the dry cleaners that cleaned our uniform held our uniforms up.
The club also had to pinch pennies when it came to traveling expenses.
I think the team was trying to save money, and so we flew a lot of prop jobs, propeller-driven planes that first year. And so I was, hey, listen, we're a professional team here. When you play for the Miami, anywhere you go is a long flight. So we had a trip out to San Diego, and we took a flight called Zantop. I never heard of that airlines, and we flew for 10 hours to get there.
Zantop, I still remember that name. The seats were very tiny. The top where you put your luggage had beds on it with it folded down. And it was a long, long, miserable flight out there, and it was even worse coming back because we lost the game.
The only Dolphin who seemingly enjoyed comfortable surroundings was Flipper, the team mascot, happily frolicking in his end zone water tank.
Being an expansion team, we needed a lot of things to perhaps draw people into it. And Flipper was very popular at that time. He would throw the footballs back out, our field goals and extra points when it was going into that end zone. So Flipper was cool.
Whenever the Dolphins score, Flipper would go up and jump through the hoop. They decided they didn't score enough, so he would jump up on first downs. We made a first down, flip the jump.
For number 32, Joe Auer, the team's MVP during its first season, the Animal Kingdom was familiar territory.
Joe Auer was probably of the team kooks, and then that might be unfair. Joe Auer was just very different and very kind of strange in his own way. But he had a couple of unique pets where you were very careful when you went in his room.
I did own an alligator. The alligator was a small pet alligator. I had to end up giving it to a circus. I had a lot of fun with that, and I've always been an animal lover.
His pet lion was named Clifford. The lion had been abandoned, her mother was killed or whatever, but Joe had a cub whose eyes had not opened yet. And when the eyes opened, Joe was with the bottle feeding Clifford and thought that Joe was the mother.
Fortunately, Auer was not also responsible for nurturing player talent. For that task, the Dolphins turned elsewhere.
What was there was a guy named Joe Thomas. He was the personnel director, and he had started putting the talent together on that football team.
Our receivers overall are good. There's a few spots, of course, everybody's looking for the big running back. Everybody's looking for...
Don Shula eventually was the man who made all the pieces march. But Joe Thomas gave the pieces to Don Shula, and without Thomas, they could never have been what they were. Made the deal, it got them Paul Warfield, made the deals that got him. Larry Little, Bob Kuchenberg, Jim Langer. It was all Joe Thomas's talent acquisition.
An early prize was 1967 first-round pick Bob Greasy, who Thomas chose over local hero Steve Spurrier.
I always kidded Joe. I said, Joe, people in South Florida, you would not have taken the Heisman Trophy winner from Gainesville, and you were going to take this kid from Indiana? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good. Now, how about introducing your lovely bride here one day?
This is Judy, my one-day wife.
Judy, he feels pretty optimistic about his chances of starting with the Dolphins. You've seen him play. You think he can do it?
I sure do.
Well,
I'm behind him all the way.
Good. Well, I would imagine so, especially after one day of marriage, right?
Okay. I got her on my side.
Good. Thank you. Have a nice honeymoon, and we look forward to you coming back next week.
This is Bob Greasy. The fate of the Miami Dolphins rests in his strong rookie right arm. He knows it, the enemy knows it, and the fans know it.
In the late 60s, Greasy was often asked to shoulder the offensive load all by himself. But even as the Dolphins kept losing, they were slowly gaining more talent on their roster.
Myself and Jim Kick came in 68, Dick Anderson came in 68, Doug Cruzan came in 68. All those people were acquired or walked on the field or somehow were transferred via Joe Thomas's office. He put the nucleus of what would later be the only undefeated team ever together.
After 4 straight losing seasons in Miami, head coach George Wilson retired from football. The Dolphins surrendered their first-round draft pick to secure the services of Baltimore Colts coach Don Shula. The two men could not have been more different.
Shula came in 1970. We changed coaches, but the team was transformed. We were people who actually had to practice. With George Wilson, if it was too hot, we went swimming. With Don Shula, we never had a drink of water on the field in 7 years.
Shula comes in and instills one heck of a work ethic on it. That first training camp, we were going 4 times a day.
You know, when I got down there in 1970, I didn't really know how good some of these players were, but I knew that I had to just start from scratch and instill in them our system and our determination to compete and to win. I think the first thing I told them was that I was about as subtle as a punch in the mouth.
45.
What I said was what I meant.
Hold up. What the hell's wrong with our snap count? Back in a huddle. Let's go. What was the call?
He really treated everybody the same, kind of like dirt. And he'd yell and scream and jump up and down.
Hey, Frank! Get in there. Let's go!
Today, 35 years later, I said, you know, I used to get aggravated at you yelling at me on the field. And he says, I yelled at you because I knew you'd play harder.
Shula's Dolphins played harder and better.
I believe there was 20 to 22 young players hit that team in 1970, and that was the core of that team for several years afterwards. We believed in that system. We got to the point where we started to think like those coaches thought personally about the game, and occupied your thoughts all the time. Consequently, it was that group of players that made that team so mentally tough.
Almost overnight, the Dolphins were transformed from doormat to dynamo, thanks to Shula's system and aggressive ownership.
No one coach wins championships. No one player wins championships, but it's an organization. Joe Robbie was a great owner for me because although he didn't have any money, he spent whatever he had. He borrowed a lot to get done what we wanted to get done.
Quite coincidentally, he felt that there was an opportunity for him to get me from Cleveland. And it was a part of a deal that involved a draft choice, Miami's #1 pick in the 1970 draft, and the Dolphins were drafting in the 3rd position.
How on earth anybody would let Paul Warfield go was just stupid.
I think Paul is, in my mind, the greatest receiver ever to play the game. Probably the most graceful individual going down running a pass pattern. He was like an antelope. always in control of himself, meticulous in terms of what he wanted to accomplish.
The productivity part of who Paul was so great because whenever he was called upon to do his job, then that's exactly what he did. He caught 29 balls, but 10 for touchdowns. All of his plays that he did have were extremely important. The greatest move I've ever seen was Paul Warfield against Oakland in 1970, and he just did a pirouette with the grace and smoothness of a gazelle and just kept on down the field.
We reversed, I think, a 3-10-1 to go 10-4, and I think that just kindled the fire in this team's belly.
Although we got beat in the first round of the playoffs, it was just a great turnaround. And our football team now gained the confidence that we could compete with anybody. And our fans now realize that we were one of the elite teams in the National Football League.
In 1971, the Dolphins improved on their previous record to win the team's first division championship. The reward for their efforts? A late December, all-expenses-paid trip to America's heartland.
We had to go out to Kansas City on Christmas Day and try and beat these guys that were supposed to be in the Super Bowl game. You know, we looked at it as we had nothing to lose and everything to gain. We played well all year, and we played well in that game.
That game was a brutal football game. Longest game ever played. I lost like 18 pounds that day. I lost so much weight that my pants were loose. And they would not die. We kept trying to cut their head off, and we couldn't, and they tried to keep cutting our head off, and they couldn't. We just kept coming back at each other.
Everything that you could ever want in a football game was there. And I always joke, I said there were more burnt turkeys on that ball game on that day than probably any other day in the history of the NFL.
In a game that lasted a record 82 minutes and 40 seconds, it was a series of key play calls by the Dolphins that eventually ended the marathon.
I knew we had it in the game plan, but I hadn't run it the whole ball game because that's all I heard the Chiefs looking for the whole game is, watch the misdirection. So I didn't run it, and I almost forgot about it.
Yes, we called a roll right, trap left, where all the action would go one way. It was like a counter move for him. I would pull from the backside and lead him through the hole, and that was a big play for us.
Larry Zonka's 29-yard run put Miami within range for a field goal try from kicker Garo Yepremian.
Here's the snap, step down, the kick is up. He's got the distance. It's good! The Dolphins win! The Dolphins win! Yepremian, 37 yards, and the Dolphins are in the AFC Championship game.
I tease about Gary Yepremian getting all the credit, people running, picking him up, and I lost 18 pounds. I'm looking out my ear hole, my pants are falling off. But when he kicked that field goal, I could have kissed him, brother. I was so glad to get off that field.
A week later, the Dolphins dethroned the reigning Super Bowl champions on the strength of a 75-yard touchdown reception by Warfield, and arguably the greatest single defensive play in team history.
And I happen to have had an interception in the Orange Bowl that they had 7 perfect blocks by our defense. Curtis Johnson tipped the ball and I caught it. Started down the north sideline and cut across the field. And our defensive players were just knocking people down. It was one of those once-in-a-lifetime plays and experiences, and, put us in the Super Bowl. Years later, Nick would say, geez, Dick, he said, you're so slow. I went out and got a hot dog and came back, you were still running. I said, well, that's because you're the only one that didn't make a block.
We were very enthralled with our successes up to that point, but forgot that there was one game remaining on the schedule, the biggest game of them all. That's a lot to deal with a young team that just 3 years earlier, 2 years earlier to be exact, had never won more than 4 games in a year.
The Dolphins were no match against a dominating Dallas team.
And we were a little overwhelmed. I think we got panicky. and it made us look like jackasses. And we were embarrassed afterwards.
Super Bowl VI pissed us off. You do one thing when you get humbled in a Super Bowl like that. You fall apart or you pull tighter together. I think Shula outlined that after the game in the locker room.
Bitterness of that defeat, that is from where the resolve came that we were going to get back to that game. And when we did, the results were going to be different.
Motivated by both the loss to Dallas and his own defeat in Super Bowl III, Don Shula led the Dolphins on a focused crusade to begin the 1972 season. Miami rode the hot hand of Bob Greasy in winning each of its first 4 games. But in Week 5 against the Chargers, disaster struck.
Shaken up on the play is Greasy.
Yeah, it looks like his right ankle, Rick. It may be right here. He may have to go out of the ball game.
When a team lost a top quarterback like Bob Greasy, everyone said, you know, it's over for them. They're not going to go anywhere. They may not win another game.
Stepping in to replace the fallen quarterback was his 38-year-old understudy.
Well, I always say Bob Greasy was a nice guy because he broke his ankle so I could play. I was just thinking, let's get a first down, let's get down the field and keep us more or less on an even keel.
Morrow on the snap, drops straight back to throw. He sets up, he is firing down the corner. Warfield, touchdown! Earl drops to throw. He sets, he is firing to the near side, fully open. Touchdown! There's where the experience, the intestinal fortitude come in.
Even as Morrow kept the offense on a steady course, it was Miami's defense that began dominating Dolphins games.
You know, looking back at our film clips of our defense, you really appreciate all the more how good these players were and how good our scheme was under, our defensive coaching staff. It was just fun to watch them because they didn't make mistakes. They didn't give up the big play.
What they did do was acquire a nickname that would become part of NFL legend.
The no-name defense became sort of symbolic of a defense that, with not a lot of known players, became a terrific defense to be on. And after a while, we kind of loved it. Matter of fact, we took a photo of the entire defense where we all wore the Lone Ranger masks, and they said, "Who are these masked men?"
The story that I remember is from Tom Landry commenting on the defense of the Dolphins. He said, "Well, they have a pretty good defense. I don't know any of the names of the people playing on their defense, but they play good defense."
To this day, I live with the term no name, but I don't really like it. I always considered it a misnomer. This was a defense with a lot of big names and a lot of big players. The leader of the defense, without question, was Nick. Nick was the guy that took charge. Typical attorney.
I was 5'11", looking up into the masks of 6'5" guys, but not one of them ever said anything back to me.
The mastermind behind the no names was Miami's crafty defensive coordinator.
I think the key to our defense was Bill Arnsparger. Our defensive coach was brilliant. He was a marvelous chess player. He had an ability to put our players in the right place at the right time. And so he called a defense that identified the ability of each player. The Miami Dolphins defense in those days was designed to help and to give help.
Anderson and other stars such as Vern Den Herder, Tim Foley, and Jake Scott made critical plays throughout the 72 season. They were helped along by the advent of Arnsparger's innovative strategy, the 53 defense.
They call it the 53 defense, not because it had anything to do with the alignment. That was Bob Matheson's number. So it was very easy to remember. When I said 53, all we had to do was look at Bob Matheson as he came into the lineup.
We really stumbled onto it because of an injury. And when Matheson joined us, everybody was playing the same defense, except they had the man over the end with his hand down on the ground. We didn't see any reason to put Bob's hand down on the ground, so we just played the same defense that everybody else was playing, except we had Bob standing up.
Offensive lines and offensive line coaches and offensive coordinators were totally confused because with Bob Matheson lining up, they didn't know whether he was going to drop back as a linebacker, come as a defensive player. Plus that, we had all kinds of blitzes working off that.
That was kind of a different thing in 1972. They would give me the freedom to move at any of the 4 linebacker spots and blitz. That's one of those deals where you're ahead of the offense. They had to catch up and figure out how to defense this.
The Dolphins continued to roll through their schedule, paying virtually no attention to the history-making course they were charting.
It was not until the 11th ball game of the year when we went in to play the New York Giants and the New York media started to focus in on the fact that we were undefeated that it became an issue.
Going undefeated just sort of happened. We didn't like losing football games, and there wasn't really any pressure on us to go undefeated because it never happened before.
Following their win over the Colts in the final week of the season, they became the first NFL team to finish its schedule at 14-0. And after beating the Browns in the first round of the playoffs, the Dolphins traveled to Pittsburgh for the title game. But early on against the Steelers, Miami looked anything but perfect.
Offensively, we just didn't have anything going at all. We couldn't run the ball, we weren't throwing the ball very well or consistently. And it just happened a situation that preceded all that stuff. We were, I think, 4th and 5 or something like that. And we knew that Pittsburgh had a habit of peeling back and forming their wall to return the ball. And they had one rusher from the outside. He came up, everybody else hit and went to the wall, and there was a hole you and I both could have run through at the same time.
And now he's going to run with the ball. 35 to the 30, down to the 25 to the 20. The Dolphins running on a big punt formation. Larry Seipel was the ball carrier, and he picked up a first down.
Seipel's gamble set up a Dolphin score, but the offense was still struggling at the close of the first half.
Well, we weren't doing well in the ball game, and Earl Morrill had come in for Bob Greasy when Bob Greasy got injured in the 5th game of the season, and Earl got us into that championship game. But Greasy had been healthy and had been practicing well for us for about a week or two.
Don Shula had to make the decision, which great leaders have to make. And at halftime, he told Earl, he says, Earl, I appreciated everything you've done to this point. He says, I'm going to make a decision to go with Bob in the second half. And it was short, it was sweet, and it was to the point.
Greasy, the quarterback, checks up, he fires the middle. Warfield's got it, 35, 40, 45, 50, started to 40, 35 to the 30. He's dragged down from behind at the Steelers' 25-yard line.
The Greasy to Warfield connection sparked the attack to a pair of second-half touchdown runs from Jim Kick, more than enough to send Miami back to the Super Bowl. Yet despite their 16-0 record, the Dolphins were still decisive underdogs going into Super Sunday.
I'll never forget, in that perfect year, I was doing the Dolphins locker room interviews. We were underdogs. This was still how the AFL was regarded. We're unbeaten in the AFC. The Redskins have lost 2 or 3 games. We're playing them and they're favored. I drove with Jimmy Greek from Las Vegas to LA, and I said, Jimmy set the line. I said, Jimmy, how could the Redskins be favored? We're unbeaten. He said, yeah, you're the AFL. You're still the AFL. I said, yeah, but we had Namath in. You're still the AFL. Redskins played tougher competition. I said, you're making a mistake. We dominated that game.
The no-name defense allowed no points, paced by 17 tackles from Manny Fernandez and 2 clutch interceptions from game MVP Jake Scott. With just minutes to go, the Dolphins looked to complete their coronation with the Ypres field goal. What followed was the biggest blunder in Super Bowl history.
I could have kicked a 42-yard field goal in my sleep. I ran out there, lined up, the snap was perfect. I kicked the ball, line drive. I picked it up, I figured this is a negative. I'll take this and turn it into a positive.
It is picked up by Garrow. He tries to throw a pass, deflected in the air.
The ball slipped out of my hands. Mike Bass picked it up, went for a touchdown. Was I scared? Yes, I was. I tried to exit way by the goal line, and of all people, the guy who was in my face was Coach Shula.
Now, Garrow didn't come over to high-five me when that happened, I guarantee you. And players on our sideline were very upset.
You know, if there was a noose anywhere handy, I know of about 40 guys who were ready, willing, and able to string Garrow up.
The no-name saved Garrow's hide with one final stand to cap off the greatest single-season performance by any NFL team ever.
That's it. It's over. Way to go, Nicky. That's right, man.
The fact that we did win the big game and had the perfect season on top of it just took away all of that criticism of my coaching abilities. I had to feel good about that. And I also had to feel good about the accomplishments of our team, of doing something that no other team had ever done in the history of the National Football League. You know, winning all the games. Nobody had done it before that. Nobody's done it since then.
This is the Vince Lombardi Trophy for the winner of the Super Bowl. 17-0 says it all. The World Championship. The best team ever in professional football.
In '72, we were so determined to pay attention to detail, to win everything, to prove to ourselves that we could, that we did. In '73, we were probably a better football team. If nothing else, we were a better football team because we were more confident.
We played the Oakland Raiders there in 1973. Our offense struggled against the Raiders that day. I believe we lost the game like 12-7. Had we not lost that game, we would have went undefeated again. We would have went back-to-back undefeated seasons. There's no question in my mind, because the 73 team was better than the 72 team.
The offense was not a flashy, big play type of offense. In fact, the offense was more of a type of offense that controlled the ball, monotonous, it was boring. We just ran right through everybody and just marched down the field and scored, but it worked.
You know, it was fun to us because we loved getting the ball on the 20-yard line, driving it down 80 yards to score, and not throwing the ball maybe one or two times. That made our job much more easy because run blocking was easier than pass blocking. I enjoyed knocking the man back off the ball and putting him on his behind. That's where we got our thrill from, because we knew we couldn't get any notoriety no other way. We never carried the ball, we never caught the ball.
And that was an amazing feeling to know that when you run plays, there's nothing that you concern yourself with except making sure that you follow these guards and they will take you to the promised land. You have a quick trap up the middle and you'll be in the secondary shortly because these guys provided not holes but hallways for you to run through.
Mercury was the guy that could get things done quickly. He was the guy that had some pizzazz, and the other team knew it. In fact, when Mercury was having his good years, the other team would defense Mercury first and Zonka second as far as trying to stop our offensive running game, because Mercury could hurt you big, and Zonka wasn't going to hurt you big. But over a period of the game, Zonka was the one that kept pounding on them and kept their offense from getting on the field and scoring points.
Larry Zonka was an absolute inspiration for our offensive line. Langer and I would have a standing bet as to which side of Larry Zonka's face his nose would be at game's end. Because one play would come back and it's over to the left, and the next play would be over to the right, and blood and snot and everything. But it was like having an offensive lineman in the backfield.
Zonka had played an important but supporting role in Super Bowl VII. In Super Bowl VIII, he was the undisputed star of the show.
We ran it down their throats. They didn't want to have to tackle Zonka because Zonka was on a roll in that game, and he was doing things that really he was running through these people, and there was no way that they could stop us. They could not stop the machine that we brought there. And they had a team, but we had a machine.
Breezy takes the snap. It's Zonka straight up the middle. Larry Zonka carries it in from 5 yards out, and the Dolphins have scored first. So far, it's been all Miami. All Larry Zonka. That's right.
Our offensive line did such a marvelous job in the coordination of their blocking. The job that Kuchenberg did on Alan Page just did a marvelous job the entire game. The holes were so large that Zonka went through without a hand on it.
Zonk rushed for a Super Bowl record 145 yards.
Now he hands off to Zonk, heading right side. Touchdown, Larry Zonka! His second touchdown of the afternoon. And the Dolphins, if they hadn't already, have now established clear superiority in this game.
With the victory and the championship assured, Shula paid tribute to several veterans by allowing them a curtain call.
One of the great honors in my career was at the end of Super Bowl VIII. Coach Shula called a few of us off. I went toward the bench, and Don Shula came over and gave me a big hug. That was the perfect ending to a nearly perfect day. And seems like it was yesterday.
With a second Lombardi trophy in the display case, Shula's Dolphins set their sights on a three-peat. But trouble loomed even before the start of the '74 season, when three of the team's biggest stars were being courted by a brand new rival football league.
I think we were all more interested in staying with the Miami Dolphins rather than going to a new league. But we needed a bargaining chip or some leverage to deal with the Miami Dolphins.
We were in a situation where we were making $50,000 a year, which was a good salary for the NFL back then. And we were offered an opportunity to make $3.5 million over 2.5 years. That's why I left the Miami Dolphins.
Larry at the time just came off the MVP and was certainly a big name, and getting Paul Warfield, the greatest receiver ever, in my opinion, in the NFL. Whether I was the caboose or not, I don't know. But it was something new for me, and I like taking chances and adventurous things. And Zonk called Coach Shula that day that we were going to sign, and more or less said we'd like to hear from Joe Robbie one way or the other, and we never received a phone call. So
the phone rang, and it was their representative saying that unless Joe Robbie matched the offer, that they were going to sign in Canada.
We banged back and forth. In the end, I remember Shula saying to me, "What do you want me to do, get on my knees?" And I felt terrible because, I have the utmost respect for Shula. Just a great, great person.
I'm sitting there with all of the dreams of what our team is capable of doing, and everything just looked like it was going to continue to get better. And then out of the clear blue, I find out that three of our best football players are going to be gone, and we're going to get absolutely nothing back in return. It was tough to handle.
The impact on the '74 Dolphins was catastrophic. I think because we knew Zonk, Kick, Warfield were going to leave, we never hit our stride, never found that rhythm. Still a very good team, but it's just different when you know guys are going to be out the door at the end of the season.
Despite lame duck players and nagging injuries, the Dolphins still won the AFC East and took a late lead in the divisional round game. But then, Miami fell victim to one of the most infamous plays in team history. Oakland's improbable sea of hands comeback.
There he is, fading, looking. He's under the gun. He's tied, he throws. It is. He caught it.
It was a devastating moment, and especially infuriating to Manny Fernandez.
Someone threw a whiskey bottle and almost hit Warfield in the head. And then a Raider fan came on the field. And as I was standing there, came over and he punched me in the stomach. And Manny pummeled him to the ground. And if he wasn't pulled off, Manny would have killed him.
I cried like a baby after that game, the most disappointing game of my life, because it did stop the dream, and we also knew that our team as we knew it wouldn't be the same anymore. Now, as a credit to Coach Shula and his staff, even without Zonka, Kick, and Warfield, we still went 10-4 and 10-4 the following years and still flirted with the playoffs and so on and so forth. But we just weren't the same.
New defensive stars emerged in tackling machine Steve Toll, number 56, and linebacker Larry Gordon, number 50. On offense, number 82, Duriel Harris became a deadly aerial weapon. And on the ground, the Dolphins relied on the zigzag jaunts of Delvin Williams, number 24. While the late 70s teams failed to achieve the level of their Super Bowl predecessors, they did maintain perfection whenever playing their division rivals from Buffalo.
What I remember about the 70 Bills teams is we owned them. I'm talking complete ownership. It was an annuity that did not stop paying. And I know it's painful for Buffalo Bills and fans, but through all the O.J. Simpson years, through all the electric company, through Joe Ferguson and all their great wins, there was one thing they could never do. They could not beat the Miami Dolphins. I played for the Miami Dolphins for 8 years, and I never lost to the Buffalo Bills.
When we were playing the Bills, that was a victory that we counted on each and every year. Now, in the reverse, Buffalo was a team that so many negative things happened to them that whenever we played them, they would have a shot. They'd had a game won, and it's like they're waiting for something bad to happen and a reason to lose the ball game, and usually they did.
Miami won a record 20 consecutive games against the Bills, with many of those wins crafted by a now bespectacled Bob Griese. But Bob's best outing came on Thanksgiving Day in 1977, when he carved up the Cardinals with a team record 6 touchdown passes. Unfortunately, Griese was finding it more difficult to avoid serious injuries. By the end of the 1980 season, the face of the franchise knew his time was done.
When you're a quarterback, you hurt your shoulder, seriously hurt it, and you're 36, 37 years old. Yeah, you had a good thought that might be the last one. I never thought I was going to play in the National Football League, and I played 14 years, so I didn't get shortchanged at all.
The Dolphins now look to the new decade and the second golden era under Don Shula. In 1981, the Dolphins replaced Bob Griese with the quarterback tandem of number 10, Don Strock, and David Woodley, number 16.
Woodley was the starter and Strock was our relief pitcher. And they called it the Wood-Strock combination.
David was an athlete trying to learn how to be a quarterback. And so Don Shula built a team around defense and around a great running game. And it was Woodley who was able to run that kind of an offense, to use deception, rollout patterns. Shula put in some plays for Woodley that you could never use for another quarterback. There was a halfback pass. Tony Nathan would throw the ball back to Woodley, and he scored him several plays.
Woodley took more snaps, but when a different style was needed, Shula called on Strock, an 8-year veteran.
Don Strock was a very smart guy, a student of the game, was like an assistant coach or offensive coordinator on the sideline there.
And the way that the Wood-Strock thing came up was when we fell behind early and you needed to throw the football, that's when Strock became a viable option. He was the guy who'd come in and lead you back, who could get the quick touchdown, who could throw for 400 yards in a ball game.
You had to prepare for different people, and I think it was a unique situation, and Coach Shula was a master at knowing when to insert myself, what situations, and it carried us for a period of time.
Wood-Strock carried the Dolphins to an AFC East title and home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs. Woodley was ineffective and Miami trailed 24-0 after the first quarter. The Dolphins desperately needed to play catch-up. Shula went to the bullpen and called on his relief pitcher to throw touchdown strikes.
You know at that point that it's a major decision to be made by the coaching staff to bring in your backup quarterback. But we had seen Don in the past and knew what he was able to do throwing the football. And fortunately for us, he came in, he started putting the ball up in the air and with a lot of success.
Rocks the quarterback, steps up, throws it in the end zone, it's complete. Caught by Rose, the tight end. He's firing for Harris. Lateral, the 28th. 20, 16, 10, 5, touchdown. That was a design play. You can credit that one for the Dolphin coaching staff.
I tell y'all, we're going to come back. We're going to come back and whoop them. Miami's number one. Never give up on Miami. Never give up on the Shula team. Never give up on the Shula team.
Halftime, I went in and our team was so excited. I said, I'm not going to screw this up by trying to make a speech. I'm just going to let this excitement carry off into the second half.
Strock passed for over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns in the game. His passing ignited a 38-31 lead before San Diego tied the score. Uwe von Schamann had potential game-winning field goals blocked on the last play of regulation time and again in overtime.
Waiting for the ball, the snap, it's down, he hits it. It is blocked again. The Chargers block it. Looking for the ball, San Diego has it at the 16-yard line. The Chargers have blocked it again.
San Diego finally secured a 3-point victory in one of the decade's greatest games.
I told him that I was very proud of him because when you lose a game like that and you know that your team, especially on a night that took so much out of you, has given it everything that they have to give, all you can do is compliment them for having the confidence and having the courage to stay in there the way that our football team stayed in there. It's a game in my coaching career that I think about as one of the great games. Unfortunately, you know, you'd like to have great games associated with wins. That was a great game that we lost.
Every game is an opportunity to learn something, not about yourself, but about your team and your teammates. I look at that game as a launching pad for what was to come the following year.
In 1982, all the buzz was about a defense known as the Killer Bees.
The Killer Bees! Dolphins are number one! We got defense!
Why the nickname? Because the unit featured number 73, Bob Baumhauer, Doug Betters, number 58, Kim Bokamper, number 59, Bob Brodzinski, and the Blackwood brothers, Lyle number 42 and Glenn number 47.
We communicated well. I think we had a group of guys who liked to study the game of football. With Bill Arnsparger, he gave us the freedom to make changes out there. That was fun. That was enjoyable because it allowed you to use your head, your creativity, and we had a sharp, intelligent group of football players that happened to be good athletes as well.
The Bees were killer in more than just name only. This swarming defense stung opponents. In the strike-shortened 1982 season, Miami boasted the NFL's top-ranked defense. In the AFC Championship game, the soggy conditions were ideal for the Killer Bees. Three interceptions by A.J. Dewey included a 35-yard touchdown. It was the first AFC Championship game shutout since the Dolphins blanked Baltimore in 1971. In Super Bowl 17, the Dolphins jumped out to a first-quarter lead when David Woodley and Jimmy Cefalo combined for a 76-yard touchdown pass. Another big play enabled Miami to assume a 17-10 second quarter advantage. Fulton Walker's 98-yard kickoff return was the first kickoff to be returned for a touchdown in Super Bowl history. But ultimately, the Killer Bees were worn down by Washington's massive offensive front line. John Reagan's 43-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter gave the Redskins a lead they never relinquished. Still, the main reason for the Dolphins' return to the Super Bowl had been defense. The Dolphins dramatically changed direction in 1983 when they made quarterback Dan Marino the 27th pick of the NFL draft.
You know, we had Dan Marino ranked number 2, right behind Elway. Elway was number 1. Dan had a great junior year at Pittsburgh, and then his senior year wasn't quite as good. And I think that's why he fell way back in the first round in the draft. We were very, very happy when he slid to us to the 27th pick in the first round.
It was fortunate for me because I came in and I was able to play early, but I had a lot of help from the veterans and the people that were here.
The thing I really liked about him was that he asked questions from sun up till sundown. And one thing that I told him was, try to learn something new every day. Not only about football, but about life itself. And you can only improve as a person and a player.
Marino's first start marked the end of Woodstock and the beginning of a new era in franchise history.
Here's the snap. Marino drops to throw. Has time. Going deep up the sideline. Man down. Got it. 30, 25, 20. Duplo. They'll never catch him. Touchdown.
Marino threw for 322 yards and 3 touchdowns in an overtime loss to the Bills. The rookie went on to win the AFC passing title, and the Dolphins won the AFC East.
He's a lot like Bonacani was as a linebacker. It didn't take long for the thought to go from the mind to the feet. With Marino, it doesn't take long for the thought to go from the mind to the arm to the feet, whatever it takes to evade the rush and let go of the football. Well, that second year, 1984, was just, one of the great memories of my coaching career when he threw 48 touchdown passes and defenses didn't know what to do against Dan. They didn't know how to figure it out. They tried to blitz him and we would beat the blitz, and then they'd lay back in coverage and we'd beat the coverage, and, we had all of the answers.
Throughout the 1980s, the Dolphins' dazzling array of offensive weapons enabled Marino to ascend to pro football's pantheon.
I'm not the type of person who's going to stand there and tell you how good I am. I think I'm confident in what I do as a player. As a quarterback, you have to have confidence in yourself that you can do the job and that everybody around you can help you do your job.
Future Hall of Famer Dwight Stevenson helped make Dan Marino one of the NFL's best protected quarterbacks.
I've never seen a player in the NFL dominate a position the way Dwight Stevenson dominated his position of center for the Miami Dolphins. What he did was he redefined the way offensive linemen blocked defensive players. He used his hands. He was 260 pounds, not an overly large individual. Incredibly quick, incredibly strong. Dwight had a great ability for knowing when you were off balance.
Opposing defenders were kept off balance as the offensive line gave Marino plenty of time to connect with an outstanding receiving corps.
It was my senior year. We was playing in Pitt, and we came out for pregame, and they were down there throwing, and we were down there throwing. And I was just watching him throw. I was like, God, if I could get on the same team with him in the pros.
I'd hold Marino to Clayton as worthy of consideration amongst the great combos of all time.
Back to throw, Marino. Here's a deep pattern down the far corner. It is tipped. Block. Touchdown. Great reception by Mark Clayton. Holy Toledo.
Clayton was an extraordinary athlete and receiver. The first thing I heard about Clayton was that he used to earned some extra money in college by betting people that he could leap a pool table lengthwise. He had that kind of ability. He could leap better than anybody had ever been around. Great speed and quickness, and he was also a very tough receiver.
Clayton and speed burner Mark Duper, number 85, were known as the Marx Brothers. But there was nothing comical about the way they torched opposing secondaries.
Duper had twin rockets strapped to his fanny. I mean, he could get down there. He was a sprinter in college.
I'll tell you, when Duper gets in behind anybody, it's Katie bar the door. He runs the 40 in 4.25, was a member of that Northwestern Louisiana State NCAA national champion 440-yard relay team a couple of years ago.
Mark Clayton and Mark Duper were outstanding. They were unstoppable. That was quite an arsenal Marino had to work with. You had Tony Nathan, that was a major contributor. Bruce Hardy, the tight end, probably the best tight end in Dolphin history. Nat Moore was still skilled as both a slot receiver and coming out of the backfield.
Nat Moore is very unheralded in my mind. To me, Nat Moore is the greatest receiver that's ever played for the Dolphins. People talk about Paul Warfield and they talk about the Marx Brothers, and those are great players, and I loved being teammates of all of them. But to me, Nat Moore was the most well-rounded receiver the Dolphins have ever had.
In 1984, Marino and a high-scoring offense propelled the 14-2 Dolphins into the AFC Championship game. The league's most valuable player passed for over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns.
He drops quickly to throw, looks right across the middle. He's got Clayton open. 10, 5, touchdown Dolphins.
Weak side out 2. Tackled by number 95, John Goodman. Red right, 70, flanker right. Hurry up. Go, Daddy! TD! 6 points! TD! TD, come on, Daddy!
Again out of the shotgun, Marino. Deep drop, throwing deep upfield, down the near side, man open, touchdown!
The Dolphins won the right to play in Super Bowl 19. The team that had set an NFL regular season record by scoring 513 points was heavily favored to beat the 49ers. Miami scored first, but Marino's usually stalwart pass protection broke down against the San Francisco pass rush. Marino's NFL future would include many great achievements, but he never returned to a Super Bowl. In 1985 and 1986, Marino threw for 74 more touchdowns, and in '85, he practically willed Miami to an AFC East title. The Dolphins won their last 7 regular season games, including a Monday night matchup against the 12-0 Bears.
They were undefeated and they had a chance of breaking the Dolphins record. And it was Monday Night Football and the hype, the Orange Bowl, which is a great place to play.
You could just feel the electricity in the stands. The people were there early, and you could feel the buzz, the excitement.
It was up to the '85 Dolphins and their fanatic fans to ensure that the 1972 team's legacy of perfection stayed intact.
I don't think I've ever heard it that loud in a football game. And the beauty of the Orange Bowl is that the crowd's right on top of you. And I think the fans were probably more aware of the perfect season record than even the players thought about.
Marino neutralized the NFL's most fearsome defense, and the Dolphins posted an impressive victory on their way to another AFC East title.
Ball is deflected in the air. Caught by Clayton. 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown Miami.
This would be the last meaningful NFL game in the Orange Bowl. In 1986, the Bowl's final year as the Dolphins' home, Miami finished with an 8-8 record. 1987 saw the Dolphins move into Joe Robbie Stadium. But during the first 3 seasons in its new home, the team struggled. From 1987 through 1989, the Dolphins lost more games than they won.
This is the last play. Dolphins lead 24-20. There won't be time for anything else. Here's the snap. He's going to run with the football. He gets in for the score. The Bills win it. Tough loss for Miami.
Toughest I've ever seen. Really is. I mean, to lose a game that way.
But by 1990, a turnaround was underway. Miami started the season with an 8-1 record and would go on to earn a wild-card berth. A revitalized defense helped carve out a path to the playoffs. Linebacker John Offerdahl earned first-team All-Pro honors. Offerdahl, a 5-time Pro Bowl selection during his Dolphin career, terrorized running backs. Jeff Cross, number 91, led a pass rush that was among the AFC's best during 1990. Safety Louis Oliver led the team in interceptions from 1989 through 92. His 103-yard touchdown return against the Bills set a franchise record. Although the defensive resurgence of 1990 turned out to be fleeting, 1991 saw the return of Marino Magic.
62 blood orange, 62 tight end short. You got it. From orange? Underneath, yeah.
Marino was voted to the Pro Bowl after a 3-year absence, then was selected again in 1992 as he led Miami to the AFC Championship game. In 1993, Marino threw 8 touchdown passes as the team jumped out to a 4-1 record. But in a Week 5 win over Cleveland, Marino injured his Achilles tendon and was sidelined for the remainder of the season.
There were some questions about would Danny be able to come back? You know, at that time, Achilles tears were not repaired with the certainty that they are today. And then there was the fact that the Achilles was not repaired properly. And he had a terrible training camp, and it was terrible through the preseason games. And the detractors were out there in masses. And there was a young kid, Scott Mitchell, the new hot shot on the scene. He had replaced Danny when he went down in '93, and he played very well. And there were some out there saying, hey, it's time, let's go with the new kid. And all this negativity was swirling. And Marino put on one of the all-time performances. He was incandescent.
Marino slogging in the mud, back to pass. He throws downfield, has a man open. Mark Ingram has it at the 30. He's to the 20, 10. He is gone. Oh, touchdown! 3rd down, 15 to go. Gigantic play for the Dolphins here. He's looking, has time, throws into the end zone. Keith Jackson has it. Touchdown, Dolphins.
Oh, yes! Marino is back, baby!
He's got Fryer wide open. Marino to Fryer at the 15. 10-5. Touchdown, Dolphins.
Miami! You talk about championship courage. You talk about a will to win.
Bledsoe, to his credit, was matching Marino blow for blow. It was touchdown, exchange. And it came down to Marino with the ball in his hands, last possession. It was 4th and 6. And 4th and 6, you're thinking, let's get the first down. Let's keep this thing going. There's some time left. Not Marino. Marino drops back, and he does a down, out, and up, which Marino lays right on Irving Fryer's fingertips. Touchdown, Miami. Miami wins the ball game, one of the great shootouts of all time. And once again, Marino proves his detractors wrong.
Shotgun, Marino throws deep downfield. It is caught by Fryer. Touchdown! Touchdown, Dolphins! Marino to Fryer! Oh!
Courageous call!
Unbelievable!
What a game by Marino. A flame burns inside that man, Dan Marino.
First of all, Danny's a winner, and he loved to compete, and he loved to win. I think he proved to himself, hey, I've still got the magic.
I think every athlete has been successful has a certain intangible inside him that he can call on whatever it is what he needs. And I've always had the attitude just not to quit, and then I can overcome anything in a football situation, in a game situation, and as you prove that as time goes on, you get more confidence.
Never out of the game with Marino. That's the thing I loved about Dan. Excitement. Our fans knew it. Our players knew it. Dan knew it. The coaching staff knew it, that no matter what the score was, that we were always in the game.
49 seconds, one timeout remaining. They trail by 3. The whole season perhaps in balance here. Here is Marino back to throw. He's going deep, got a man down there. He's got a touchdown!
During his career, Marino led 36 comeback drives in the fourth quarter or in overtime. Marino's most classic comeback came in '94 when he rallied the Dolphins from a 10-point deficit. He threw 2 touchdown passes with 4:12 remaining and was a master of deception on the game winner.
With 32, 31, 30 seconds to go, I believe Marino is saying, I'm going to spike it.
Marino takes the snap from center. He's looking. He throws. Oh, touchdown, Dolphins, Mark Ingram. That was unbelievable. Yes. No, you like that, Paul. They caught the Jets off guard on that play.
The Jets are, they're sleepwalking. They're clueless. They have no idea what's going on. Mark Ingram runs a little down and out. Danny Boyd puts it right there. Game over.
The important thing is the last couple of ball games have been heartbreaking losses, and today was a great win. All right.
1995 was Marino's milestone season as he secured his status as one of the NFL's all-time greatest quarterbacks.
Dan Marino becomes the all-time leader in pass completions in NFL history, and before this season is over, he will own every record known to man.
Dan Marino, with that touchdown, has broken another record. He has the granddaddy of them all now. Most touchdown passes ever.
They say football is all about the thumper, baby, and he's got one as big as a football.
In 1994, the family of the late Joe Robbie sold their majority interest in the Dolphins to H. Wayne Huizenga. One of Huizenga's first and most important decisions was to retain Don Shula as head coach.
You can't look at Don Shula and say he didn't have the gift of leadership. I mean, the ability to inspire and make others believe. And that's why he had such great success. I mean, that's why he piled up 347 wins in the NFL.
Start up the field like you're blocking that guy right here. You're getting your release. You're right here.
He wasn't just good at one thing of leadership. He had the whole spectrum.
Coaching is taking the personnel that you have and getting the most out of their abilities. And I've always taken a great deal of pride in being able to do that.
Regardless of what talent we had, Coach Shula found a way to bring the most out of everybody and to utilize our offense and defense to that talent.
We got to make our own fire, baby. We got to make our own fire. We got to hang together, support each other. When they make a play, just hang in there, and then we make the plays that win the football game. Let's do it, baby. Our day. Let's go. All right, let's go now. Go defense, take away.
I never felt you had the game won until the game was over. And so I was always uptight on the sideline until that final whistle, because you don't ever want to be the coach that lets something slip away that should have never slipped away if you'd have done your job as a coach.
This Hall of Famer was literally a coach for all seasons. Sun-baked Miami could also be rain-soaked Miami, and Shula's teams often had to slog it out in the mud. Some of Shula's weirdest football experiences came in the snow. In Foxborough, the Dolphins weren't outmuscled by men. They were outmaneuvered by a machine. In this case, the machine was a snowplow.
The snowplow game, you know, that brings back a lot of bad memories. and I'll never forget, it snowed so hard that the field was completely covered. You couldn't see the lines. You didn't know where the sidelines were, and you didn't know where the lines across the field were.
Such conditions precluded a blizzard of points. For most of the game, the scoreboard was frozen on 0.
The score was 0-0. Neither team could do anything offensively. They got down in position to kick a field goal, and Ron Meyer now realized that they had no chance of kicking the field goal unless the field was plowed out where the holder could catch the ball and put it down in an area where there wasn't any snow. The snowplow was driven by a convict on work release, and he listened to everything that Ron Meyer, the coach, said. So he directed this convict on work release that was driving the snowplow out to where he wanted it plowed. It was really an unfair act when you come to think about it. They get the snap, they put it down, he kicks the field goal. It's good.
It's the first time since I've been in professional football we've ever taken such serious exception to something which happened on the field. And that kind of thing should not occur as a result of somebody putting a snowplow run by a convict with a day off from prison.
He's a hero now, that convict on work release. And just recently I went to a banquet up there, and they gave me a miniature snowplow for me to remember. And it was snowing the day that I went to the banquet.
The Dolphins right now put Stoyo on the field, Mr. Money.
About a 39-yard field goal attempt. 15 seconds on the board, Peterson to hold. Here's the snap, set down, kick is blocked. Never did get it up in the air. Never did get it up in the air. The ball rolls free, and rolls free in the end zone. The Dolphins fall on top of it after it was touched by a Dallas player, and Miami is arguing.
How about this?
Now let's see what the officials are going to call it. With 3 seconds, the clock is stopped on the board.
I remember Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones starting across the field to give me their condolences on the other side. And all of a sudden, play is stopped, and they say, hey, wait a minute, there's time for one more play. Because Leon touched the ball, and then, you know, we downed it. So now we have one play.
All right, waiting the snap is Peterson. Here it is. He sets it down. Kick is up. It's good, and the Dolphins win the ball game.
Yes,
the Dolphins win 16-14. All right.
In 1993, Don Shula became the winningest head coach in NFL history.
What'd you do? Did you look for the look first on the 63 arrow?
No.
You looked right away.
Right now, the guy was coming right in my face. How much more? One to me? No, 63.
Let's be patient now. We gotta be patient. Take what we get. Double tight, Fryer. Hey, great. 119 arrow Q flanker out.
Here's the snap. Mitchell looks into the middle, steps into the pocket. He throws the end zone. Man open, touchdown. This is number 325, and it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Coach Shula being mobbed as he becomes the all-time winningest coach in the history of the National Football League, breaking the record of the immortal George Halas.
Coach. Good, Danny. Good. Thank you. You're a big part of all that, baby. I love it. All right.
This is from every player on the team, and this is going to be a bronze sculpture with this, the last ball of the field, being on top.
Thank you, John.
Two years later, the man who symbolized Dolphins football retired from coaching.
I finally made the decision to step aside because I felt that I wasn't doing as good a job as I felt that I should be doing. I had set the bar pretty high early in my coaching career, and with the back-to-back Super Bowl wins and 6 Super Bowl appearances, and then not being in the big game for a period of time, I think that was disturbing to me. And then also knowing that we just hadn't done as well as I would like to think that we should have done. I had coached for 33 years. I was very proud of my record, my accomplishments, but perhaps somebody could come in and do a better job.
At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the next head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Jimmy.
Following Don Shula's retirement, owner Wayne Huizinga turned to Jimmy Johnson.
Wonderful. Doing all right.
How about with the check, man?
Signing a 4-year contract worth $8 million, Johnson became the NFL's highest-paid coach.
You notice how my eyes close when I really smile big? And you lit up, too.
Well, it's indeed a pleasure for me to be back in South Florida, to be the head coach of an organization that I have admired for quite some time, an organization that I think is at the very best in the NFL, and that's the reason I'm in here.
The owner of a national championship and 2 Super Bowl rings, Johnson brought high expectations to the Dolphins.
I think the biggest thing with the football team right now is we want to establish an attitude that we're going to be the very best. And I know from day one that's not going to be the case, but as time goes on, I think that attitude will creep in that we will be the best.
A strict taskmaster, Johnson began to reshape the Dolphins.
Dominate that line of scrimmage. Dominate the line of scrimmage. Let's go. Go ahead, wrap his ass up and strip the ball out. Let's go. Sure tag ball.
Coach Johnson stressed from the day he got the job, we're going to be the hardest working team in the NFL, and I can't believe there's a team out there working harder than we are right now.
It's a hard camp, but it's a camp that's going to make you a better person, a better player.
Sometimes I feel like I'm in that movie Full Metal Jacket, the way he be screaming and going on out there.
Discipline. Discipline. You got to be disciplined enough to stay on sides. Discipline. Let's go.
We always have physical training camps. We always have a lot of hard work, and I think it makes us steel hardened for the season.
Early in camp, Johnson found out just how good Dan Marino really was.
All right, let's go, let's go. Play with some urgency now. A little urgency. Deep, flex on 2. Ready? Set hut! Hut! Good job, man. Just fade stop over there with the combination.
I ain't never been part of this where you can take it down the field that fast. Nice job. Nice job.
With Marino leading the offense, the Dolphins reached the playoffs in Johnson's second season.
Lobbing one into the end zone. Barnett, touchdown. Fred Barnett leaps. He's got it.
Hell of a job throwing that football. Dan Marino.
With the offense in good hands, Johnson turned his attention to the defense, where an undersized linebacker caught his eye. His name, Zach Thomas.
We drafted Zach there in the 5th round, and we felt like really that he would help us as a backup linebacker, be a great special teams player. And we went to the very first mini camp and went through a couple of practices and said, hey, watching the instincts of this linebacker and watching him move around the way he plays, I can tell you right now, he's going to start for us.
The Dolphins' starting middle linebacker on opening day, Thomas made an immediate impact.
First game I was so high, I finally made it, and that's when I was just happy to be here, and I just went out there and had some fun.
Number 54 became a force in the middle of the Dolphins' defense, leading the team in tackles as a rookie.
I guess what catches your eye is that he's always at the ball.
I mean, here's a guy that not tall enough, not fast enough, but they just make plays. Very smart, instinctive player.
Thomas bore a striking similarity to a Dolphin legend.
I love the way he pursues and chases. It jumped out on everybody. It looked like Nick Benacani. I can remember watching Nick. Every time he made a play, everybody said, he was too small. The same with this guy, he's too short.
Thomas's toughness could be attributed to an early childhood experience.
I was playing on the back of a tire and with a toy, and it was parked, and the guy got in it, went back and ran me over once, and then panicked and ran me over twice, went forward over me. But that's when my dad, he said, I knew you were going to be a football player because you could take a hit.
During his 12-year career with the Dolphins, Thomas gave more hits than he took. He led the Dolphins in tackles an unprecedented 10 times. The former Texas Tech standout simply had an eye for the ball. During his career, Thomas picked off 17 passes, and his 4 interception returns for scores are a Dolphin record.
It's intercepted. Zach Thomas. And here is O'Donnell looking to throw, has time, now throws over the middle, picked off by Zach Thomas. He's going to go in. Touchdown, Miami. And Zach Thomas now is the all-time Dolphin leader in interception returns for touchdown.
How sweet it is.
The pass rush got a boost in 1997 with the addition of third-round pick Jason Taylor, number 99.
Jason Taylor is a player that it really took everybody's eye right off the bat. He's got great quickness. He's a very intelligent player. He's an outstanding pass rusher, and you just don't find natural pass rushers that often.
With Taylor and Thomas wreaking havoc, the Dolphins' defense was the league's best in 1998. The unit surrendered a league-low 265 points.
Zach Thomas steps in front of a Cordell Stewart pass, makes a beautiful interception, and he's untouched into the end zone.
We gotta have it now. We gotta have it.
Dominate on 3. Dominate on 3.
Making plays.
1, 2, 3. Dominate.
On Monday night in Week 16 against the eventual world champion Denver Broncos, the defense asserted itself. The unit held Denver to just over 200 yards.
It is intercepted by Sam Madison.
The Dolphin defense rises to the occasion. They take the football away. They intercept John Elway. And right now, the Dolphins have a chance to take total control of this football game. Playmakers, baby! That's what we talking about, baby! Playmakers!
Against the Broncos, Marino was at his best, throwing for 355 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Dan fakes the pitch. He's looking to throw. Fires deep down the near side. Lamar Thomas is open. Makes the catch at the 25. He's to the 15, the 10. Touchdown, Miami! Dan looking to throw. Firing Lamar Thomas's way. He makes the catch. It's a touchdown, Miami! Dan is back. He's looking. Throws underneath. Aronde Gaston. He's in! Touchdown, Miami! He dragged Torrey James into the end zone. 4 touchdown passes for Dan Marino.
The victory earned the Dolphins their first home playoff game since 1994. In the wild card round against the rival Buffalo Bills, the defense quickly set the tone. Buffalo ball carriers were swarmed by Dolphin defenders. The opportunistic unit forced 5 turnovers. Dan Marino and the offense produced big plays of their own.
Here we go. Marino back to pass. Fires over the middle. It's called. It's a touchdown. Lamar Thomas has the ball.
Late in the game, the defense needed one last stop to seal the victory.
Thurman Thomas in the backfield with him. Flutie back, pumps once, now looking. He's hit by Trace Armstrong. It's the ball! The ball wins! Dolphins have it at the 3-yard line. Trace Armstrong with a sack, and the Dolphins are going to beat the Bills here at the Pro.
We said we're going to win in the fourth quarter, and we won it.
The following year, roles were reversed. Late in the game, the Dolphins needed a touchdown to win. The master was up to the task.
by Seattle. Dan looks, he fires far side, and a great catch is made at the 32-yard line.
Awesome! Simply awesome! First down Miami at the 5-yard line.
We'll win this game. Put it in there, baby. Put it in there, Great eye formation in the backfield. J.J. Johnson taking the pitch. He cuts. He goes. He did. Touchdown, Miami.
The win was Marino's last as a Dolphin and was a fitting way to end his illustrious career. When he retired, Marino held every major passing record, a legacy few would ever approach.
Throwing on the slant, complete to McDuffie at the goal line. He's in! Touchdown, Dolphins! And that is also career touchdown pass number 400 for Dan Marino.
Physically the greatest quarterback ever to play the game. No one can throw the ball like Dan Marino.
Dan was a great competitor, and he hated to lose. You know, he wanted to win. He wanted to win on every pass that he threw. He wanted to win every series that he was in. He wanted to win any game that he was part of.
I got him as one of the greatest quarterbacks ever in the NFL.
In 2000, the Dolphins retired Marino's number 13.
I'd like to introduce to you my father, my hero, and my friend, ladies and gentlemen, Dan Marino.
In 2005, Marino received the ultimate honor, enshrinement into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Last January, when I was elected to the Hall of Fame, I challenged all Dolphin fans to overrun Canton, Ohio. And you know what? We've taken it over. Thank you.
The new millennium brought new faces to the Dolphins. Dave Wanstead replaced the retired Jimmy Johnson as head coach.
We better not have any drops doing this. I could bring my daughter out here and go through this drill.
We're installing a new offense this year, so there's going to be some changes, but that's good. And I think that urgency and competitiveness usually brings out the best in people.
Competition brought out the best in quarterback Jay Fiedler as he earned the starting job. A Dartmouth grad, Fiedler made the most of the opportunity. Using his superior intelligence and leadership skills, number 9 kept the Dolphins on the winning track. During his 4-year stint as starter, Fiedler posted the 3rd best winning percentage among NFL quarterbacks.
Touchdown! A heavenly throw by Jay Fiedler.
I'll give you this, but I'll tell you in the huddle, it'll be a 9-point. Okay. You stay with your 6-9 stop.
Throwing deep left sideline, and it is caught. Touchdown! Right on target was Jay Fiedler.
Few could question Fiedler's toughness. Taking hits from opponents as well as his critics, Fiedler stood tall.
Jay Fiedler filling in for Dan Marino and filling those shoes. There's always going to be the comparison to the great Hall of Fame quarterback. History has shown us that it is literally impossible to fill the shoes.
Marino, he was not. But Fiedler kept the Dolphins' offense moving and the team winning in 2000.
Throwing one into the end zone far side, a leaping grab, and it's a touchdown Miami! Touchdown Dolphins!
Aiding Fiedler was a ferocious defense led by ends Trace Armstrong and Jason Taylor. The furious pass rush resulted in a league-high 28 interceptions.
All week long, we prepare for this game right here. Just go out there and lay it on the line and have some fun, fellas. Just have some fun today.
By the season's final week, all that separated the Dolphins from their first division title since 1994 were the rival New England Patriots. The Dolphins would not be denied.
Handoff, Lamar Smith to the left side. His head breaks the tackle. Touchdown! Touchdown, Miami!
Hey, we gotta go back. We gotta get another turnover.
Bledsoe, short drop, looking to throw, fires over the middle, and it's tipped and picked off.
Zach Thomas delivered a Christmas present.
The Dolphins have it back.
Say it with me. Say it again. Say it again. Say it again. Okay.
The kick is away. It has the distance. It is good! Olindo Mare, 49 yards. The Dolphins take the lead.
That's what I'm talking about, baby! That's clutch right there!
Olindo Mare, you are the man.
Hey, we division champs! Baby, hell yeah! Division champs, baby! Good job, Trey.
There's not a greater feeling in the world, to go out there with our backs to the wall and have to fight back and lay it on the line and leave it on the field and come out with a damn victory. Hey, division champs, okay?
Do or die.
Let's do this.
Hey, we don't get it done today, we're going home. We don't want to go home.
Winner go home, baby! Winner go home! Woo!
Trailing by 14 in the third quarter, the Dolphins needed a spark.
The power, the bend, and the press the inverted wing, okay? You got to blow high. You got to beat that guy's ass now, okay?
The defense ignited a rally that would become part of Dolphin legend.
Keep pounding their ass. It's going to pay off in the end. Keep working. Keep working.
A punishing ground attack led by running back Lamar Smith began to wear down the Colts defense.
Handoff, Lamar to the left side. He's in! Touchdown, Miami!
And how fitting Lamar Smith would finish off this drive. Get stronger now.
Smith totaled over 200 yards on the ground. His 40th and final carry of the day made history.
Can the Dolphins do it?
It has been magical. It has been enchanted in the second half for Miami.
Handoff, Lamar wrapping up the ball with both arms, and he just gets away from everybody.
Look at this! The 10 and a dodge! It's a touchdown, Miami! Lamar Smith tears away from tackles. He won this game. The Dolphins have done it. They have won this game.
What can you say? Because, hey, there's nothing that can be said to make anything happen like that. You know where that comes from?
Team.
That comes from the team. Hey, and that comes from the damn heart.
The following year, the defense carried the Dolphins to the playoffs.
It's intercepted. Kenny Mixon has it. He's at the 40. He's at the 30. He's at the 20. He's gonna go.
But an early exit prompted changes. Looking to improve his team's 23rd ranked rushing attack, Dave Wanstead worked a deal to bring Ricky Williams to the Dolphins in 2002.
Hit that hole, Rick! Hit it there, hole!
The draw to Ricky, looking for room, finds it at the 50. Ricky to the 45. Ricky to the 40. There he goes. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Ricky. Hands to Ricky, running right. First down and a lot more. He could go. There he goes. Bye, Ricky. Look at the Bills in your rear mirror. Touchdown, Dolphins. And as Williams slips away from one, touchdown.
Williams quickly earned a place in the hearts of Dolphins fans.
Do not be fooled by the hairstyle. Ricky is probably one of the most intelligent and well-aware football players that I've ever coached.
You know, they think because he's a fairly aloof guy, or has been, that he doesn't really like what he's doing. I think he loves what he's doing. It's just that when it's over, he doesn't love talking about it too much.
If you could sit down in a room full of fans, what would you want them to know about you?
About me.
About you?
Just how much I love football and how much I respect the game.
I've not seen a player reinvent himself as well as Ricky Williams did. Dropping the weight to become so much quicker. That determination, that attitude that every running play he's trying to go the distance.
A jaw-dropping, eye-popping kind of run by Ricky Williams.
For 2 years, Williams ran with reckless abandon, totaling over 3,200 yards rushing and 25 touchdowns.
I love contact, and I want to let them know that I'm going to be here the whole game.
But the hits began to take a toll, and a worn-out Williams abruptly retired prior to the start of the 2004 season. Ricky would return in 2005, but the franchise fell on tough times. Coaches came and went as the team posted just one winning season over the next 4 years. The Dolphins hit rock bottom in 2007 when they won just one game.
The worst team in the history of professional football. Why were they bad? Untalented, poorly coached, not together, in complete disarray and utter embarrassment to the league and to the Miami Dolphins.
The team's lone moment of glory came in overtime versus the Ravens.
Got time over the middle. Camarillo's got it. 40. He might score. He may go the distance. He's going in. The Bobby goes back to Unbelievable.
This football take us out of the history book. We're not going in for that one, baby.
The entire team has jumped Camarillo in the end zone.
There's good history books and there's bad ones.
A
We're out of the bad one.
64-yard touchdown has given the Miami Dolphins a win, their first of the season.
A bright spot during this dark time was the play of Jason Taylor. A six-time Pro Bowl selection and NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 2006, Taylor is the Dolphins' all-time leader in sacks.
And he's stripped with the football. Jason Taylor's got it. He picked it up. At the 30, at the 40, he may go the distance. Jason Taylor's going to score a touchdown. Get to the end zone. Touchdown, Jason Taylor.
Right on time.
That's been the one constant for this Dolphin team, even through some losing years and years of struggle. That defense has been good. Why has that defense been good? One of the main reasons, Jason Taylor.
And that's what Jimmy Johnson saw to him when he drafted him out of Akron. It was a guy who was more than just a pass rusher. He was a football player.
Once I get in my stance, that's when I started to think about what I'm going to do to him.
He doesn't believe that just because a tackle outweighs him by 70 pounds, that he can't beat this guy, even with a bull rush.
He will force a tackle to do something that the tackle doesn't want to do, realizes he's doing it, and watches Taylor go by.
If you have 15 sacks, then you're considered one of the best in the league. I mean, if you think about it, it's only 15 times you're tackling a quarterback out of all the plays during a season, out of the 1,000 plays you take during a season. So, I mean, they're so hard to get. Once you get back here and get them on the ground, it's probably the best feeling in the world.
When you look back at this era of pro football, he will be the guy who you could hold up as the greatest combination pass rusher and undersized player against the run of everybody. He'll be a guy who 6, 7, 8 years will be a very, very interesting debate for the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
He's in trouble, and he's going to go down. Jason Taylor, the sack for the safety.
Looking to revive his franchise after a 1-15 season, owner Wayne Huizenga turned to Bill Parcells. Renowned for his ability to resurrect struggling teams, Parcells was hired to head up Miami's football operations.
I'm very, very pleased to be here in Miami with an organization that has the history that the Dolphins have, and to be working for a guy like Wayne Huizenga.
Parcells hired no-nonsense Tony Sperano to be head coach.
Buckle them chin straps, prima donnas! Not every period needs to take freaking 40 seconds to get started. Let's go!
But turning around a 1-15 team would require thinking outside the box.
We're 0-2. We had just gotten blasted by Arizona. Offense wasn't doing much. So I'm up for anything. You know, being 0-2, you don't want to go 0-3. We had the New England Patriots next.
We were overwhelming underdogs, and quite frankly, even though I colorized the game for the Dolphins, I'm thinking we don't really have a snowball's chance in this game.
And when they came in to the meeting room with the Wildcat idea, you know, it was a chance for us to give us a different look, give us a little spark.
Ronnie will play the tailback. Pennington is flanked to the left. They're going to snap this back to Ronnie Brown. They hand it to Ricky. No, they Ronnie Brown.
The triple option comes to the NFL.
The Dolphins introduced a Wildcat offense with Ronnie Brown taking the direct snap from center.
Yeah, and Ronnie Brown will take a direct snap. Run to the right. Into the end zone.
The genius, the mastermind himself, Bill Belichick, had no idea what to do. They could not stop Ronnie Brown. Ronnie Brown was running the football successfully. He was throwing the football successfully.
Once again, direct snap to Ronnie Brown. Goes to the right.
Yes! He's got it! Are you kidding me? The New England Patriots have no idea what hit them.
The New England Patriots looked like a midget league team stumbled onto the field against the big boys. And what a sight to behold.
Direct snap to Ronnie. Ronnie right side, breaks a tackle. He's gone. He's at the 40, the 30. Ronnie Brown is fourth rushing touchdown of the day.
The Dolphins and the Wildcat took the NFL by storm.
Wildcat, that's our playbook now.
Wildcat personnel. Ronnie will take the direct snap. Hands it again. Up the middle is Ricky Williams, and he's gone.
The Wildcat brought a new dimension to the offense, as did newly acquired quarterback Chad Pennington.
The football gods smiled on the Miami Dolphins when the New York Jets let Chad Pennington drop into our lap.
In addition to his passing touch, number 10 brought leadership to the young team.
From the first day he walked into our program, he was a leader there.
The guy came in one day, we knew they were going to be our leader. He's our captain now for one day.
Pennington went on to earn Comeback Player of the Year honors. And by the season's final week, the Dolphins were poised to win their first AFC East title in 8 years. Playing against the team that cut him just 5 months earlier, Pennington and the Dolphins capped their storybook season with a division title.
Touchdown Miami! And the Miami Dolphins are the champions of the AFC East for the first time since 2000.
Wow. It's one of the most glorious and unforeseen turnaround seasons in Dolphin history.
The greatest turnaround in the history of the National Football League from one year to the other.
Why not us? Why not us, right? This ball's going to go right here to this quarterback.
Poised to write a new and exciting chapter in Dolphins history are up-and-coming stars such as quarterback Chad Henne.
Back to throw Henne. Gets it off. Has Beth. Breaks the tackle at the 5. Touchdown Miami.
In 2008, Stephen M. Ross became majority owner of the Dolphins. Star power soon followed, as several celebrities became limited partners with the team.
We were always Dolphins fans. We live here in South Florida, so we knew that we wanted to at least be a part of something greater. This was the right moment.
We want to give the fans something that is not just the team, which of course is the center of everything, but you know, a reason to come out here and have a great time besides great football.
In Miami, the true heroes are the Dolphins fans.
Here are our Miami Dolphins!
I mean, you got to get something for the fans. I mean, especially the fans we got.
This entire crowd is on its feet here at Dolphin Stadium.
Fans, I mean, it's what they look forward to all week.
We came down here and we were the only game in town, so we take great pride in bringing the community together to give them something to cheer for. And our accomplishments makes this community very, very proud of being Dolphin fans.
We would be in a tunnel waiting to be introduced, and the electricity coming from the stands. I mean it. My hair on my neck would stand up because they wanted to see their Dolphins so badly that the cheering became deafening.
Going to the airport and meeting us when we come back from away games, first 5,000, then 10,000, then 20,000, then 50,000 people. They had to shut down the airport and literally make it off limits for fans because it was closing down the operation in Miami International Airport because football fans were going to see their team. How many places you know like that?
Everybody, Democrats, Republicans, Latins, blacks, Anglos, they all came together because they were rooting for one thing, the Miami Dolphins.
People's butts that are in those seats out there in the Dolphin Stadium now are sons and daughters of the fans that watched us, perhaps grandsons and granddaughters. It's become a tradition. In a short time, you understand that in Chicago, you understand that in New York, where there's been 50, 70, perhaps 80 years of professional football. Hell, Miami didn't start till 66. Where'd the tradition come from? Because the fans wanted it.
I enjoy the relationships that we've made over a period of time and the accomplishments of the organization. It's nice to be a part of this Dolphin history here in South Florida.